اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. خل المقادير تمضي لا تغالبها، فإن من غالب الأقدار مغلوب. إن القضاء لسيف لا يقاومه شيء من الخلق إلا وهو محبوب. وامشي رويدا مع الأقدار في مهل، فإن من يكره الأقدار متعوب. سلم وفوض لحكم الله محتسبا، فإنما الأمر مقضي ومكتوب. والله يقضي بما شاء وكيف يشاء، والعبد عبد ومخلوق ومربوب. ولم يزل ربه الرحمن يكلأه، باللطف والحفظ محفوف ومصحوب. حسن ظنونك بالرب الكريم، ولا تسيء ظنا فتبقى عنه محجوب. واعمل لنفسك أعمالا تسر بها، فكل ما يفعل الإنسان محسوب. إن كان خيرا فخير سوف يحصده، أو كان شرا فتنكيل وتعذيب. يا ويل من ضيع الأعمار في زلل، وكل من كسبه الآثام والحوب. واطلب علوما مع إقبال مع عمل، فأنت بالعلم والأعمال مطلوب. واحذر زمانك هذا إنه زمن، به المناكير شاعت والمعايب. فكن وحيدا فريدا خاملا حذرا، فإن فيه الأقاويل الأكاذيب. والظلم فاش بلا لوم ولا نكر، وللمساكين تخويف وترهيب. فكن لبيتك حلسا لا تفارقه، إلا لشيء له في الشرع تصويب. واذكر إلهك ذكرا دائما أبدا، فالذكر بالذكر مقرون ومصحوب. وذاكر الله يجالسه، فاجلس مع الله تأتيك المواهب. واطلب من الله ما تحتاج أجمعه، فالخير يا ذا لديه والمطالب. لا تسأل الله كريم الوجه خالقنا، فعنده الفضل والإحسان مسكوب. واعكف على بابه في كل ما نفس، فإن نسيانه يا صاحبي حوب. وكن أخي بحبل الله معتصما، فكل حبل سواه فهو مقطوب. واسلك على سنة الهادي تفوز، وفي أولاك ترضى وفي أخراك محبوب. ففي اتباع النبي الخير أجمعه، عليه منا صلاة ربي يدوب. تغشاه والآل والأصحاب أجمعهم، ومن لمذهبهم في الخير منسوب. والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lessons in Nur Idah, in the fiqh of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa radiyallahu an. And we are still in the chapter of Tahara. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this lesson, make it a reason where our sins are forgiven, and may prayers answered inshaAllah ta'ala. So we have come to the part where the author mentioned Faslun fil wudu. So today inshaAllah ta'ala we will speak about ablution, the integrals of ablution. But before that, just to recap some of the things that we mentioned last week in our lesson. We spoke about makruhatu qada'il haja, yani the things that is makruh. I just want to highlight makruh here is makruh tahrim, not any makruh tanzih. So let me explain. There is a difference between makruh tahrim, makruh tanzih. Makruh tahrim, yani it is a prohibition that is based on dalil that is dhanni, but haram in the Hanafi madhab, yani it is a prohibition that is based on dalil that is qat'i, whereas makruh tahrim, it is prohibition that is based on dalil dhanni. And then we have makruh tanzih. Makruh tanzih, it is what you call it, something that is any dislike. So when we speak about makruh tahrim, we are saying that there is a sin, it is haram. Makruh tahrim, it is sinful, and if a person performs makruh tahrim. So here when the author mentioned wa yukrahu istiqbalul qiblati wa istidbaruha wala fil bunyan, this we covered in our last lesson, that it is makruh to face the qibla when a person is urinating for example, or to face back of the qibla, even if a person is in a confined space, like toilets. So this is tahrim, makruh tahrim. So all these things that we mentioned, all these are based on narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prohibitions not to face the sun and the moon, and the place of where the wind blows and so on and so forth. So this is the thing that I did not explain in the last lesson. Yani for those who are following to take note what is meant by makruh. So now inshallah we will speak about ablution. So in the Hanafi madhab, we will see there are differences when it comes to integrals in comparison to the Shafi'i madhab. Those who are learning Shafi'i fiqh, we understood that the integrals wudu there are 6, but here the author mentioned 4. In the Hanafi madhab, they do not regard any intention to be an integral. They do not regard intention and niyyah to be for what you call it, and integral in your prayer, wudu afwan. And likewise sequence, tertib. So there are only 4 integrals. So he said arkanul wudu arba'a, yani there are 4 integrals of wudu. Wa hiya fara'iduhu. So these are the obligations in wudu. Pillars meaning obligation, the fara'id, the things that are compulsory. Number 1, al-awwal ghaslul wajhi. So number 1 is to wash the face. So this is based in the verse in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha qumtum ila salati farsilu wujuhakum wa aydiyakum ila al-marafiqi wamsahu bi ru'usikum wa arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn. So number 1, we have Rasulul Wajh. We do not have any differences amongst the scholars in Islam when it comes to the obligation of washing of the face, because it is established clearly in the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وحده طولا من مبدأ سطح الجبهة إلى أسفل الذقن. So he goes on to speak about the boundaries of the face. So he said that طولا, in terms of the length, yani it is from the jabha, سطح الجبهة is here, yani the forehead, all the way to الذقن. ذقن is the chin, the meeting of the 2 bones of the chin here. So in terms of length, it is all the way from on top all the way to the chin below. Wahadduhu ardan, when it comes to the breath, ma baina shahmatay al-udhunain. This is shahmat al-udhunain, this part of our ear here. So there are no difference when it comes to the Shafi'i madhab, also we speak about shahmat al-udhunain. So it is from here to here, tamam. So all this is part any of the face, all the way any from on top any to the chin and from the ear to ear. Wathani, number two in terms any of the integrals any of wudu, raslu yadaihi ma'a mirfaqaihi. So to wash any the hands inclusive any of mirfaq, yani the elbows. So at the elbows any is part any of the obligation. So it is compulsory any that we wash our hands, just like it is compulsory to wash any our faces. Asalis raslu rijlaihi ma'a ka'baihi. Number three is to wash any the feet, inclusive any of the ankles, So here any the author any mention any the first three things. Number one is washing any of the face, washing any of the hands, washing any of the legs. So he mentioned this together because all these things are similar in terms of the obligation of washing. Whereas any when comes any to the head, it is wiping. Tamam. That's why he mentioned warabi'u mashu rubu'i ra'sihi. What is compulsory any is that we wipe. Minimum any requirement is 1/4 yani of the head. 1/4 of the head. So when we look in our heads, we can determine how much any is 1/4. Although yani what is any the sunnah yani is that we wipe any the whole head. All this any inshallah is coming. But this is any the minimum any obligation. In the Hanafi madhab, the minimum any obligation is 1/4 any of the head. In the Shafi'i madhab, any is 3 strands any of hair. So these are some any of the differences. When comes any to washing, it is compulsory any that we make sure that water washes any those body parts, yani the face, the hands, and likewise the feet. So when comes any to the head, any it is wiping. So these are the 4 any integrals of wudu in the Hanafi madhab. So again, number 1 is washing any of the face, number 2 washing any of the hands, washing any of the leg, wiping any of the head. So we do not any consider the niyyah yani to be a rukun, likewise tertib yani to be rukun. Now these are some of differences between the Hanafi madhab and the Shafi'i madhab. So in the Shafi'i madhab we mentioned 6, Hanafi madhab and we mentioned 4. طيب. Then the author and he mentioned sababuhu, yani what you call it, the reason and behind ablution. What is the reason and behind ablution? And he mentioned istibahatu ma la yahillu illa bihi. The reason and behind any ablution and is to make any something halal, is to make any something any halal. If without it, it cannot any be performed. What does it mean? Type now, prayers any is wajib. We are not be able any to perform any prayers unless any we have any ablution. So ablution, the reason any for ablution any is to make any our prayer becomes any valid, because our prayer will not be valid any without any ablution. So this is any the reason any behind the obligation any of ablution, because we are not able any to perform our prayers without any our yani ablution. Now likewise any when comes any to tawaf, without any ablution any we are not able any to perform tawaf. We are not able any to what you call it, carry any the Quran and so on and so forth. Wa huwa hukmuhu dunyawi. So this is any in terms any of the ruling any in terms any of the worldly any of worldly any state. So here any the author any mentioned any there are 2 aspects any of states. We have any the worldly aspects, aspects, the worldly any aspects and the aspects any of the hereafter. So when comes any to ablution and when comes any to the worldly any aspect, it is an action that enables us any to make something else any becomes any valid. So by ablution we make our tawaf any valid. By ablution we make our prayers any valid. So this is any in the worldly any aspect. But in the aspect any of the hereafter, we will attain rewards any from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if any we make any the intention any of ablution, because then only it becomes any ibadah. So here any the author any speaking any about the difference any when a person any does not any make intention in wudu and a person any who makes any intention any in wudu. If a person does not make intention in wudu, yani for example any a person goes any to the tap and straight away wash any the face, wash any the hands, wipe any the head, wash any the feet without any having any intention, we say the wudu is valid, tamam, because we say that intention any is not an integral, but he will not any be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his any ablution. He is just any performing the aspect any of the dunyawi, the worldly any aspect. But if a person and he makes any the intention of ablution lillahi ta'ala, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now he will attain any rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ablution. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he mentioned the hadith, innamal a'malu bin niyat wa innama likulli imri'in ma nawa, yani rewards any is based any on intention. And if a person makes any intention, then only he will be given rewards any from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if a person does not any make intention in wudu, the wudu any is valid any for prayers, the wudu is valid any for prayers, but a person will not any be attaining rewards in akhirah. The aspect any of akhirah will not be given any to the person. So this is any the difference any between a person any who makes any intention and a person who does not make intention. So that is why the author any speaks any about these two aspects, the aspects any of dunyawi and the aspect any of ukhrawi. Tamam. So aspects any of dunyawi, yani the wudu can be used any to perform prayers, but the aspect of ukhrawi, that he will be rewarded any for the wudu when he makes the intention. So this is again a difference any between the Hanafi madhab and the Shafi madhab, because in the Shafi madhab they do not any regard prayer wudu to be valid and if there is no intention. And if a person any wash any the face without making any intention, the wudu any will not be valid. So these are some any comparison. So in the Hanafi madhab, it is easier in a sense that if a person, what you call it, forgets any to make any the intention, and for example, the wudu any is still valid. Shurutu wujubil wudu, the conditions any on the validity any of the conditions any on the validity any of wudu. So now we are going any to speak any about conditions any of validity. So he said that wa shurutu wujubihi, number one, al-aql, that a person any must be intellectual sane, not any a mad person, not any a mad person. Number two, al-bulugh, a person any has reached any puberty. Number three, al-islam, that he must be a Muslim. If a non-Muslim any takes any wudu, it is not counted. Number four, wa qudratu isti'mal al-ma' al-kafi, having the ability to use the sufficient amount any of water. Otherwise, he does any tayammum, and if a person doesn't have any sufficient any amount any of water, he will any go back any to tayammum. But if he has any water, then it is compulsory any upon him to use water. Number five, wujudul hadath, if a person in a state any of impurity, whether it is if it is any minor ritual impurity, then only any wudu any becomes any compulsory, because otherwise any he is any in a state any of wudu. Number six, adamul haydi wan nifas, yani for woman yani not in the state any of menses and postnatal bleeding, because women any who are in the state any of menses and postnatal bleeding, it is not any permissible any for them any to take any ablution. Number seven, diqul waqt, yani a person any for example he has not prayed any his zuhur prayers. He has not prayed any his zuhur prayers. For example, there are only 10 minutes any to asr. Now in this situation, and we say it is compulsory that he takes wudu. It is compulsory that he takes wudu and he prays. He cannot what you call it, pray at a later time. Because why? Because diqul waqt, yani he has only 10 minutes. This is enough any for him any to take ablution and to perform any prayers. So now we say that it is compulsory upon him any to take any ablution. He cannot delay no longer. So these are the conditions any on the validity any of wudu. Next any the conditions any on the obligation of wudu. So we have condition on the obligation of wudu, that he must be a Muslim, that he must reach puberty. This is what any the 8 things any he mentioned. Number one any al-aqlu, number one al-bulugh. So these are the conditions on the obligation of wudu. That's not, I made a mistake, not validity of wudu. Obligation any of wudu. So a person is sane, he has reached bulugh, baligh. Now prayers and it becomes compulsory, wudu also becomes compulsory upon him. Al-Islam, yani it becomes compulsory upon Muslims and not non-Muslim. Qudratul isti'mal al-ma, having a sufficient amount of water, and in a state any of al-hadath, not in a state any of menses and postnatal bleeding. And what you call it, if a person in a state where he cannot delay no more he prayers, then wudu any becomes obligatory upon him. So these are the conditions on the obligation of wudu. Now we are going any to speak about conditions any on the validity any of wudu. So there is a difference between conditions of obligation of wudu, conditions any on the validity any of wudu. So if you ask any the question, who are those any who are obliged any to take wudu, this has been answered any before. So now any we are going any to speak any about conditions on the validity any of wudu. So the author any mentioned wa shurutu sihhatihi salatha. There are three things any he mentioned. So there are three things. Number one, umumul basharati bil ma'it tahur. So number one, any we have to make sure that we use any water that is tahur, pure and can purify, and it covers any the skin. Covers any the skin, meaning the water washes any the skin. There is nothing any that stops any the water from reaching the skin. So we have to make sure when we wash any our face, and we wash every part any of our face, every part any of the skin any of our face, including the hairs. Likewise any our hands, likewise any our legs. Number two, inqita'u ma yunafihi min haydin wa nifasin wa hadathin. Yani not in a state any of menses, postnatal bleeding. Yani if a person, if a woman, and if for example any in a state any of menses, and she takes any ablution, then the ablution yani will not any be valid. Likewise any when a person any is in a state any of nifas, likewise what you call it, the wudu yani is not any valid. Number three was zawalu ma yamna'u wusul al ma. So there are certain things any that will prevent water from reaching any the skin. So when we perform any our ablution, we have to make sure there is nothing that prevents any water from reaching the skin. So the author yani give any the example ka shama'i wa shahm. Shama' yani is like this candle, you know candle. So if it falls any on the skin, then wax, the right word any for this any is wax. So if a person any uses any wax any on the skin, then water any cannot reach any the skin. So it is compulsory any that he remove the wax. So nowadays woman any is using any certain types any of makeup, and they know that the water any cannot reach any the skin, then it is compulsory any upon them any to remove the makeup when they perform any ablution. Likewise any shaham any is a type any of an oil product where it prevents any water from reaching the skin. Likewise today any we have pain. Pain any is also yani the things any that prevents any water from reaching any the skin. So it is compulsory any for us any to make sure that none any of this prevents any water from reaching the skin. So these are the three conditions any on the validity any of wudu. Number one, that we make sure water reaches any the skin, and pure water. Number two, a person any is not any in a state any of hayd, nifas or hadath al-akbar. Number three, that our bodies any is free any from anything that prevents any water from reaching any the skin. So inshallah ta'ala we will stop any for today because any of time, and we will continue any in our next lesson speaking any about tamami ahkamil wudu, on some any of the rulings any related any to ablution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us any with tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.